Hi, everybody. It's Dana Brigman, and I am excited to bring to you this series of videos that are focused on introducing you to educational resources and possibilities that are beneficial to your dog's nutrition and natural wellness plans. I would love to be your mentor, your coach, your consultant, your friend, your affiliate, as you are considering some of the products that we talk about in these webinars and on my Facebook or on my website. This may be from the Volhard line of foods and supplements that now include some of the Adored Beast products, as well as essential oils and homeopathic remedies that are very beneficial to your dog's health. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the show, and feel free to reach out with questions or request for a one-on-one consultation at any time. So hi, everybody. It's Dana Brigman of the Canine Coach Carolinas, and I'll make a shameless plug that I'm actually changing or adding a new website called Natural Wellness for Dogs. That's going to be where I house all of my nutrition, essential oils, homeopathy type remedy content, trying to separate that out for search engine purposes so people can find me. So I'll share more about that later, but I'm excited today to talk to Dr. Barb Fox live. I talk to her live every month, but I'm inviting all of you into our live conversation today, talking about the leaky gut. And so, Dr. Barb, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then we'll get started.
All right. Thanks, Dana. For those of you who've not met me yet, I'm Dr. Barb Fox. I am a holistic veterinarian in Northeast Iowa. I have a consulting business, so I can consult with people all over the country if they have been working with a veterinarian for their dog or other animals' health issues, then I can set up a consultation. And I review all the medical records and diet, supplements, anything that you're doing. Even the animal's emotional health is a very big part of the physical wellness. So I go through in a lot of detail, unlike a conventional veterinarian where you get 15 minutes maximum with the vet and get to treat symptoms, and that's it. So I go a lot more in depth. And then I also have spoken at different conferences and held workshops on holistic veterinary care. So I'm really, really excited to be back today to talk to Dana and to answer any questions you guys might have. So
I have Facebook Live fired up so that if anybody pops in there and does ask questions, we'll start to layer those into the conversation. But otherwise, we'll flow like we've always done, and I'll ask the questions and we'll have a conversation about it. So, Dr. Barb, today's topic is about leaky gut, and in some ways that feels like it's become sort of a buzzword or a hot topic or a thematic topic of the times, right? And so I want you to explain to everybody, what is it and how would we know that that's what a dog has or an animal?
Okay, well, I can explain
too, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to keep this really simple and try to not get into all the technical medical jargon here because I don't want to lose anybody. But leaky gut is, even though I know it's real, it's still considered a theory. But more and more practitioners are recognizing this syndrome. And basically what leaky gut is, when there is damage to the inside lining of the intestine or the stomach, what happens is we lose the tight junctions between cells. So all the cells in your body, or especially those in the gut, have an interlocking, you can think of Legos, but they interlock together really, really tight. And that keeps the things that are going through the intestinal tract, like your digesting food and other things moving through there. It doesn't get back out into the fluid in the other tissues surrounding the gastrointestinal system. But when we have damage from substandard or even bad, what I would consider bad food, any medications or drugs, toxins, bacteria, viruses, and fungi can attack those those structures that line the inside of the gut, And then the cells start to get damaged and they lose their integrity. They lose their stick togetherness. And then all these things that are coming through that are going to be excreted from the body end up leaking in through those unstable junctions, and they get into the fluid around the abdominal cavity. They get into the bloodstream, they get into other tissues. And that's what we call leaky gut. So like I said, the best analogy I have is to think of the interlocking bricks or Lego pieces, and that'll explain what happens. And the second part of your question, Dana, how do we know? It is really difficult to know that leaky gut is the cause of so many different diseases. However, if everybody thinks about how the gut has a tremendous number, has the largest number of immune cells in the body, all good health starts in the gut. So anything like an autoimmune condition, gastritis, which is vomiting, colitis, which is diarrhea, even things like brain fog and other health issues can all be traced back to the gut health. And if the gut health isn't good, then we have issues.
So I've always had this visual when I think of the gut as it being this little, like your stomach, for example, but all the rest of it as well. And so what you're talking about is if these are the connective pieces, it just sort of, the particles sort of leak through a gap that's there or through a thinning that's there. Is that right? It's not a hole.
Yeah,
it's just a little, but
it's micro. Yeah, it would be like microscopic in size, Dana.
And so it only
because when you think
a
of
little bit to cause trouble.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And so what happens when you get that stuff, those toxins or the stuff that's meant to go out of the body gets back into the body and into the area where it's not supposed to be, then the body goes, uh-oh, we've got a problem here. And then they set up war against this invader because that's not something that's supposed to be floating around in the interstitial fluid of the abdomen. And that's where you get the immune cells going into overdrive. And usually the body will try to get these back through the liver, back into the portal system, and metabolize them, send them back out again through the intestinal tract to the outflow area, which is the rectum. But what if those excretory organs like the liver, well, you know, it's all connected. So let's talk about liver, pancreas, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, even the spleen to some extent. All of those organs, if they're overwhelmed and they can't get that stuff out fast enough, the next best place it goes out is through the skin, because the skin is the largest excretory organ path, you know. And I mean, like you think of all the pores we have, the dog's feet excrete things. Then we have allergies set in. And a lot of people think that allergies are just a result of an environmental toxin, but that's not always true. Allergies usually and almost all the time start in the gut. Does that make sense?
It does. But to clarify, at least in my head, and maybe to help others, leaky gut and allergies are not the same thing, but they may look similar, but leaky gut could also lead to allergies. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if we look at all the things I mentioned earlier, like maybe some mental fog, some brain unclarity, autoimmune conditions, and that can include muscle pain, joint pain, even arthritis. Like I said, just about, if you go on the internet and research leaky gut symptoms and conditions associated with that, you'll get a page-long list of stuff. And like I said, you really can't, scientifically can't correlate it to leaky gut. But if you study how the liver is your big excretory organ in the body, if it's not working well, and then we have damaged mucosal lining in the intestine, we've got a real issue. And that's where some really severe disease sets in.
Yeah. And so that is one of the questions that I have, and I'll just pull it to this point is, left untreated, what would happen?
Well, the worst case scenario is your dog would develop a very serious disease, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, like I said, gastritis or colitis, even cancer. In my opinion, just based on my experience in the last 28 years of looking at this stuff, is that if we have chronic disease like cancer, let me back up here. Lost my train of thought.
No, you're
Got
fine.
a little ahead of myself.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
So yeah, but if a lot of these intestinal lymphomas, especially in cats and even in dogs, if you've got any kind of large colon issue or cancers of anywhere in the body, especially liver cancer, you have to think leaky gut and what's causing that leaky gut. I think that's the more important thing, is what causes leaky gut.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you or not. I'll let you go ahead.
Go ahead. I think you're going down a path that I want to hear. So go right ahead.
Okay. All right. So I mentioned food as one of the, I think that's probably the most important thing, besides all the toxins and so forth that you're putting in the body. But food, especially dry kibble, is the worst thing that you can give your dog. And the reason I say that, and I don't care if you're paying $100 for a 25-pound bag of food, especially prescription food, because
right.
I don't even know what a prescription food is. I mean, it's like
it's a marketing term.
Right.
It really is.
But when dry kibble is produced, and I'm just going to get really graphic here, so bear with me. Anything that, unless it's a human grade food, in other words, some bags of food will say human grade, and so they're putting in things that are they've only been approved for humans. Right. But unfortunately, a lot of your pet foods come from what they call the 4D category, which is diseased, disabled, dying, or just what do I say? Dead, dying, diseased, or disabled livestock. So anything that comes on the kill floor and it can't be used for human consumption, they're not going to waste anything.
That doesn't
and it goes
sound
into the food.
Good. And
I know it sounds horrible, but my brother-in-law
eat that.
I know my brother-in-law goes to, I mean, he's a truck driver, and years ago he was going to these places, these rendering plants, picking up all this stuff that should have been thrown out or buried or incinerated, and he was hauling it to some of these big pet food companies, and he was just appalled. He said, I couldn't do it anymore. So I mean, I've got his testimonial to back that up. And then when let's say, even if you're using human grade food products in that food, to make kibble of food, first of all, that meat and your starch content, which is either grains or potatoes, sweet potatoes, barley, pea fiber, whatever, gets mixed in with water into this big, almost like a mud pie. And then it's put into a machine called an extruder. And basically what that is high pressure at high heats to dry out the food. And then so it's not in that mud form anymore. Then it's more of a, somewhere between a putty, like a paste. And then it's pushed through this big machine. And like I said, at that high pressure and high temperature, and then it's cut into tiny chunks when it comes out. And then because of the high heat and high pressure, you've lost all the nutritional value from that food. Then the company is forced to spray on a synthetic vitamin mineral mix. And then they're calling and flavor and dyes and preservatives and whatnot. And that is your food. So what happens when a lot of those proteins are exposed to high heat and high pressure, you get toxic metabolites from that, carcinogens like acrylamides and other things, that now your pet is eating a totally processed food. And if your veterinarian says your dog should be eating this company's food that I carry in my clinic, and it's dry kibble, look at the ingredients, run. Exactly. Yeah. And I hate to be so passionate about it, but I I used to feed this stuff.
Yeah.
We started out in our junior year of veterinary school, and these big pet food companies come in and give us a big 40-pound bag of food and tell us why their food was so great. We never questioned it. We were never taught to read how to read a food label. And
Right.
so that's one thing I teach my clients, to start reading a food label and finding out, question this stuff. Why is there corn? Why is there wheat? Why is there corn gluten? Why is there wheat gluten? Why is there stuff that you can't pronounce in there?
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
Sorry, I got on a little bit of a roll there.
I'll take this opportunity to share with the audience that we've all been there, right? We all did not know better at some point. And if they are just learning and sort of coming off these low quality foods, it's okay, right? We've all been there. When I was fresh out of college and had a dog on my own, for God's sakes, I fed Beneful, right? And I would never recommend that anymore, right? But I didn't know any better at the time. And that was a whole lot of years ago, but that's what I fed. And then I had a veterinarian in recent years recommend IAMS to me. I'm like, I'm finding a new clinic. I'm out. I've got to go.
Right?
Right? I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
So
I know it.
That discussion about the nutrition, I think, is so critical for everything that we talk about healing and keeping our dogs healthy and longevity and that sort of thing. But I see a lot of people who are trying some sort of quote unquote leaky gut protocol product or whatever that they have found out on the internet, right? Or in some of the pet retailers. And they're like, oh, here's this thing that's going to fix my leaky gut for the dogs. But they're applying that to a kibble-based diet. They're putting it into their kibble-based diet. Is that even going to be effective?
In my mind, no, Dana. I mean, like, for the reasons I just said, when that dog is eating carcinogenic material, there's no product in the world that's going to fix leaky gut. It might give a little bit of nutrition or a little bit of help, but no, it's not going to fix it. Right. And then I want to go on to talk about the other things that you put in your dogs, like those commercial treats that have all kinds of horrible things in them. I mean, for one of my courses one of my online courses I created, I went to the big box stores and I bought probably $50, $60 worth of treats, maybe more like $80, and anywhere from the little chewy things with the marrow in, they call them the little bones with the little stuff inside. Yeah. And I got some rawhide bones, researched rawhide. I mean, and some of these things that I remember, there was even a little, we're talking about dogs in this, but just for cats, this little ½ ounce or quarter ounce little salmon fillet thing. It wasn't real salmon, obviously, but it was like $3. And I'm like, why would you pay for a synthetic salmon when you can buy real salmon, and feed that to your animal? But I mean, when I looked at the ingredients in these treats and what the side effects of these ingredients were, I was just appalled. So with all that said, we have to take into consideration, what is your dog getting for treats? What is your dog getting for oral heartworm, flea, tick medication? I think those are the worst products in the world because they stay in the body for 30 to 90 days. Mm-hmm. Who wants a chemical in their dog's system for 90 days? Mm-hmm. So this can all create, and if your dog's on joint medications, so an NSAID like Previcox or Tramadol or anything like that, then we have the medications that are causing damage to the lining of the intestine. So, I mean, it's just like a catch-all. We have to take into consideration everything that goes in that pet's body.
I'm going to make a little aside question here and we'll come back, but it triggered a question. So I am seeing locally a significant number of puppies, 6, 7, 8 months old, being put on anti-anxiety medications from their veterinarian.
Ooh, wow.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. Can anti-anxiety medications contribute to something like this?
Anything can, Dana.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Anything can, because Yeah, because most of the time the liver is the big metabolizer of these drugs. I mean, I can't think of a drug that doesn't go through the liver. And then the liver, because of the bile acids and everything else it secretes, along with enzymes from the pancreas and so on and so forth, then that goes through the intestinal tract. And then those bile salts are reabsorbed, and then we're back to square one. But yeah, anything that you put in there. Now, if a dog is eating, even there's some foods out there, some canned foods, and even some poorer quality commercially prepared foods you'll buy in the refrigerated section of like a pet store. A lot of those are contaminated with aflatoxins, which are toxins that are mycotoxins. Aflatoxin is the main one, right. And those are the toxins that you'll find, molds and so on and so forth, fungi that grow on that food. And there's been a lot of recalls. So there is a really good site, and I don't know if I've told you this before or not, but it's a website called truthaboutpetfood.com.
I am out there quite often. Yep.
Wow. I mean, there's a ton of good information there.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't just take my word for it. I tell people to go out and research, do your own things. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. So if somebody they think they have a dog with leaky gut, or they've consulted with you and we believe, based on your expertise, that that's what we're dealing with, what's the way forward? So what are the nutritional plans that lead to healing? What are the strategies of what do we need to be putting in that body nutritionally? And I know it's fresh food, but are there any specific foods and supplements or essential oils that are going to help the healing process?
Well, it's a good question, Dana. I know that anytime you look at food, a different protein is implicated in causing problems. I say every dog is an individual and should be treated as an individual. There are test strips that you can buy through, I can provide that link if anybody wants to, but you can do saliva testing on your dog to find out if it's allergic to or has sensitivity to something like 30 different proteins. And that can be sent, they send you a home kit, you collect the saliva on a little piece of thread and then send it back to the veterinarian, and she will analyze that and tell you what your dog needs. That's where I start usually, because I'm allergic to fish. I'm allergic to dairy. Now, you can probably eat those things and you'll do fine. It would make me deathly sick. So this is why I say each animal is an individual. Start there. And then we want to prepare as natural or as pure as we can to what that animal would eat out in nature. So if we've got a wild dog, what's it going to be eating? It's going to be chasing down prey, small, whatever, rabbits, birds,
moles,
squirrels. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And when they ingest that entire animal, they're getting all of the vitamins and minerals and enzymes from the intestinal tract, through the kidney, the spleen, all the ingested in the intestine. Mm-hmm. They're getting calcium from the bone. They're getting fiber from any of the tough, like what we would call gristle or the connective tissue, and some of the hair off the animal. And that's a really complete, full diet. Now, we feed our dogs vegetables and carrots and all these nice little things, fruits and so on and so forth, because they like it, and they're not out hunting. If they're out hunting, they may just nibble on, some vegetation here and there. They're not getting that when they're on a processed food. And I'm just going to put this little statement out. If this is a take-home point for everybody, is that the veterinary industry is the only health profession that recommends processed food. Think about it. And even canned food, even though I think it's better than dry food, it still is heavily processed. So then we want to try to get onto a freeze-dried food, a raw diet, or a lightly cooked homemade diet with help from either a holistic veterinarian or a nutritionist that's, that has experience. And that's where I really start. And then we can also focus on digestive enzymes. Because of the way that our food sources are today, unless you're fortunate enough to have, you know, a neighbor who's raising their own livestock without antibiotics and vaccinations and all that, you're going to go back to the human food industry. It's not as clean as you would think, and it's not as nutritious as you would think. So then we have to add the digestive enzymes. So it is breaking down the animal proteins that your dog is eating before it gets down into it. Just is, it's a helper for the whole digestive system. Let's put it that way. I promise I keep this simple.
No,
and then we want to and then we want to add pre and probiotics. The prebiotics help support the viability of the probiotic. And probiotic, if you guys know, if you take an antibiotics and your doctor says eat some yogurt, it's not my idea of a probiotic, but that's where the whole thing, but that's the whole premise, is you're supplying the good bacteria to get that gut microbiome or the whole gut health back into balance again. So we've got the good bacteria outweighing the bacteria that shouldn't be there. Okay. And those are my staples for starting with leaky gut. Obviously, there are essential oils that can help with digestion and uptake of the nutrients. There are a lot of different things out there, but if we focus on the enzymes and the probiotics, I think that you've got a really good start along with a fresh food diet.
Well, and that's just the good basis for good food anyway, right? I mean, so we're really
correct. Yeah.
I mean, good food, digestive enzymes, probiotics are core to what I recommend to everybody anyway, no matter kind of what's going on, especially as their dogs, you know, show signs of what may look like an allergy or as they're aging and things of that nature. It's just good foundational food, digestive support, probiotic health. That's the key, right? I mean, we're not talking like magic potions and lotions and whatever out on the interwebs that we have to add into the diet. Is that right?
Yeah. And I've got a really good story. I may have shared it on a previous recording that we did together, but for those of you who haven't heard this, honest God, live true story. I just saw this client the other day, and she's starting she's got a little teddy bear. She's starting it out on the Bull Hard food now. Oh, because of what I've coached her on. Because she had I want to say it was some kind of Shih Tzu cross, and Molly lived to age 14, but at age 10 or 11, she developed severe allergies, where Carol, her owner, was having to take 2 sleeping pills a night just to get through the itching episode, because Molly would just be scratching all over the place. And as long as Carol had her on steroids and antibiotics for the skin lesions, then Molly was fine. Anytime she came off of that, that's what conventional or traditional veterinarians do, is they put them on antibiotics and steroids and a prescription. I'm just going to say that like this: prescription dog food for allergies. Well, the food wasn't doing any good, because as soon as Molly came off of the conventional medication, she was scratching again. So Carol walks in, and I don't even remember how I met her, because she only lives 20 miles from me. But anyway, when I had my physical office still in place, she brought Molly in, and she brought 2 Walmart bags full. I mean, like overflowing of all these supplements. She walks in and she dumps them out. And she goes, I've probably spent $500 or $600 on these things. What do you think? What do you think? How good are these? And I just looked at her and I went, Carol, I started picking up the bottles and looking at them. I don't know. These are products I've never even heard of. And she goes, well, they said this would do this on the internet. And you know, I heard this on the radio program, this supplement would work. And I'm like, you know, I tell her, and that's when I went through my talk, I only use a few companies' products. Those are products that are veterinary backed or veterinary formulated, that have veterinarians on staff that can help me if I get stuck on a case. And I said they've been in business for years, because they can't be in business if their products aren't good. Right. And so basically I said, Carol, you're at a really bad point here with Molly's health, and this is just going to keep deteriorating. Now, here's what I'd like to do. And I told her I wanted to have her go off of everything that she had bought. She agreed to do that. So I gave her, she wasn't ready to do raw food yet. I didn't know about Bullhard at that time. So I started her on, just gave her a lightly cooked homemade recipe that I put together for her. And then we started her on some digestive enzymes, probiotics, essential oils. That was really key. Had her on a lot of essential oils. And in 3 days, Dana, that dog's its itching was down by 50%. In another 3 weeks, it was completely gone. No medications, no prescription food, just I had given her and the things to start her out on. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people think they're doing the right thing by putting 10 or 12 supplements in front of their dog every day. But what happens is you can get vitamin and mineral imbalances, and then you've got a bigger problem. So
and many of them over the counter like that are synthetic, which the body doesn't know what to do with anyway. So then that's a whole episode. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And so the receptors on the cells, when they look at these synthetic vitamins or minerals or some kind of vitamin mineral mix that they have, the body goes, what is this? Right. And they don't utilize it. And they,
what do I do with that?
So so the client really is wasting money.
Right.
And they're not doing their animal any good. So yeah. This is why I encourage everybody to work with a holistic doctor if you get a chance to. I know that I do consultations, like I said. I know that Dr. Susan Albright does, and there are probably a boatload of people around the country who do that. And I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I'm just going to say, if you go to this website, it's ahvma.org. It's American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association.org. They have a link there called Find a Vet. Mm-hmm. And say if you're out in the middle of Wyoming and, or you're on the East Coast, but you don't have an access to somebody you can get to easily, then a lot of these doctors will, if you find a vet, see if they can do online consultations or telemedicine with you.
Yeah. And, Dr. Barb, I think a lot of people are reluctant to try that. And I'm hoping that you and I can convince them to be open to that possibility. It doesn't mean they have to not have a local vet. In fact, we probably need local vets to help you with the blood work and the lab testing and all of those things. But to bring in somebody with a holistic point of view and a natural wellness view to even collaborate or to give a second opinion or an alternative opinion is a beautiful thing when we're struggling with traditional medication or traditional veterinary ways, right? And so, again, I just want people to know that the remote aspect of this is just like you and me talking on Zoom, and you're looking at their lab work going, all right, well, here's your plan. And you can help them outline that, and you can discuss all the details and their concerns and their budgets and all of that to help them move forward.
That's absolutely right, Dina. And the other thing is, I kind of come down hard on conventional veterinarians, but I was there at one time. I understand their mindset, where they're coming from. A lot of people just can't wake up, don't want to wake up and explore any other options. And so a lot of times I will work with a traditional veterinary clinic. They'll send me blood work. They'll send me digital x-rays. They will send me any ultrasound results. And even the medical records, all their medical notes. I have to have that, first of all, for my state license requirements. In other words, I can't just consult with somebody without documentation. In other words, so a client doesn't get on and do Dr. Google, come up with their own diagnosis, then I'm going down the wrong path and I could potentially harm that animal by not doing the right thing. Right. So I have to have that. But it helps me too. Like one client that I worked with, her little dog had Cushing's disease. And this dog was on the traditional medications for it. And she had blood work every 3 months to check the cortisol levels. Cortisol levels were perfect. The medication did its job as far as getting the blood levels down, but the dog still had bald patches, had a pot belly, lethargic, just poor eyesight, the whole thing. And I just had to say, okay, your medication looks like it's doing the right thing, but when you look at the dog, your dog's still very sick. And so we took her off. This is what the client's suggestion, because I can't tell anybody to take your dog off of conventional medicine, but eventually we weaned her off of that medication, added all the things I've talked about, plus more, for adrenal support. And in a couple months, that dog started growing out a new hair coat, lost a pot belly, actually lost 2 pounds. It was just a little long-haired Chihuahua. And she had more energy, was going on walks with the owner again, and not on any conventional medications. So I still commend that veterinarian for doing the blood work and keeping up on things, but here she was not open to doing anything alternatively.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it really works, and I call it integrative medicine, where we will work with conventional medication when it's needed, but we're going to do supplementation and other things, other modalities like energy work, or acupuncture, chiropractic, to bring about more homeostasis, which is a fancy word for balance in the body. And that's what health is all about.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So if anybody needs a consult like that, you're dealing with your local vet and your dog is still ailing, struggling, bring in a holistic vet like Dr. Barb to consult with you, at least for alternative ideas. I mean, you don't have to use them. You don't have to take her word, right? But at least it's going to give you, and in some ways it'll give you hope that you might not have otherwise had, and something to try that you might not have ever thought of, or might not even known was a possibility. So, okay.
And I think it's important too, Dana, just so I can interject here, is that I'm not taking the place of the conventional veterinarian at all. I'm not going to be able to see your pet on emergency. I'm not going to be able to draw the blood and do the lab work. I'm just there for, as an adjunct person.
Exactly.
Adjunct means extra. We're going to add to it. We're going to augment or change it for the better,
Mm-hmm.
that animal situation.
Exactly. Exactly. Understand completely. So I was going to ask you what would happen if someone follows the leaky gut protocol without having a leaky gut, but we covered that in the fact that it's really just good nutrition, digestive enzymes, probiotics, healthy lifestyle. And that if we get all of that right, the gut healing should take place without any issues. And if we're following those natural, healthy processes and nutrition components, we're just building a better dog, right?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. We have this wellness line where everything looks like it's fine. And if you do all those things, you're going to be way above the wellness line. And so
that's the goal, right? I talk about healthy, happy, thriving dogs for many years to come. And that's what we're trying to build. That's what we're trying to do. And if there's an ailment bump along the way, how do we fix it? And then how do we keep them in optimal health as much as possible? So are there more, is there more information you need to share with us about leaky gut, or things that the audience might need to look for or take away from this conversation?
Well, Dana, I can say that I see an awful lot of leaky gut conditions. And even you mentioned anxiety, and anxiety medications. Sometimes the food is the direct cause for anxiety in our pets. It's too much starch. It's like rocket fuel for these dogs that don't need that. They need more protein, not the starch. And so,
can you say that again?
When I guess
in the back, that food nutrition plays a role in anxiety and AKA behavior. They are intertwined. Louder.
It would be this. Okay. It would be the same thing as feeding your child a ton of sugar and then expecting it to behave and be calm.
Yes.
Right. And unfortunately, even the best dry kibble food has 60% starch in it. And what happens when starch is broken down? What's it turn into?
Sugar.
It turns into pure sugar. Yep. And then that causes inflammation in the body, anxiety because you're inflamed. And then it can also cause, just like I said, too much energy that should be directed, elsewhere. And not, if you've got a hardworking dog, Iditarod dog or something like that, or Diderot. I can't even say that word. But if you've got a performance dog, maybe the carbs are going to be a little bit good, but you can also get the same type of energy from fats. It just takes a little bit longer for the body to utilize that type of energy. But
good food.
I prefer to go the
good
yeah, I go
food
to
is the
prefer to
core
go that
to
fat route.
good health, period.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Barb. Unless you have anything else to add, I am going to stop the live. And we did not have any questions that I can see popping in there, but that's okay. It was our first time going live in Facebook. We'll work on the next one, and hopefully we'll build our little audience that way. But this will also be saved and put out on the podcast site as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Dana.
If you need Dr. Barb, her website is Barb Fox DVM, as in Doctor of Veterinary Medicine.com.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's Dana Brigman, and I invite you to visit my new website, naturalwellnessfordogs.com, where I am on a mission for your dog to eat better, behave better, feel better, and live longer. This website is filled with information about nutrition, aromatherapy, homeopathy, and a little bit about your dog's behavior and how all of those things can help benefit your dog to live a healthy, happy, thriving life. I look forward to being your mentor, your friend, your consultant, your nutritionist, your aromatherapist, all of those things that will help you as you are seeking answers to the journey of natural wellness for your dog.